Hi everybody, it's Kim from Patriot Garden, and yesterday we picked up 10 of these little cuties. So today's video is going to be all about things to think about if you're planning on raising chickens. So I find chickens very easy animals to keep. They're not difficult at all. These little guys are Heritage Cross, and this is a breed for meat. I also have 7 egg layers, 4 of which I have raised from chicks. There are things that you'll need to do to get ready if you are preparing to have chicks, but really raising them and keeping them could not be simpler. So I'm going to put this little guy down and we're going to talk about the 4 things that you need to get ready to raise your own chickens. So chickens need a place to live, they need food, they need water, and they need heat, just like any other animal. It's really good if you're raising chicks to make sure that that stuff is ready when your chicks come home. And this is why. When chicks are first hatched, they can live for maybe 2 or 3 days on the nutrients they got from the yolk inside the egg. After that, you have to provide everything for them. And food and water are #1 necessities, and they need to be available all the time for them. I'm raising meat chicks here, and this breed tends to grow very quickly. So I automatically put them in a larger brooder so that I can get more weeks out of that space. If you're raising a breed for egg layers, they tend to grow more slowly. So you could actually get away with a plastic bin as your brooder for a little while anyway, but definitely longer than these guys. I use actually a baby pool surrounded by cardboard because they're already not even a week old and they're jumping on top of the heat plate. So I know it's only a matter of time before they discover they can jump on top of the pool and get out. And I don't want to come home from work and find chickens all over my basement. That brooder has to be filled with something that's absorbent for their waste. Don't use newspaper. Newspaper is slippery. If a baby chick slips, they could really ruin their hips and their legs, so you want to be very careful. I happen to use pine shavings. You can get a huge bag for like $5, and that bag will last these chicks for the whole time that they are in my basement. Now for food and water, that's pretty simple. Food is chick starter. Now when it comes to chickens, the food for babies is formulated with a higher protein than calcium. Food for grown layers is just the opposite. The protein comes down and the calcium goes up. Too much calcium for little chicks could be detrimental to their health, and not enough protein could be detrimental as well. So when you're feeding your chicks, make sure you're using chick starter. For my meat chicks, I switch to a grower feed when I put them outside at about 5 to 6 weeks. And I'm processing them at 12 weeks. So they're really not here for a long time. With my layers, I switch to a layer feed on about 18 weeks because between 18 and 24 weeks is when most chickens will begin to lay. I just use regular tap water for their water, but I do add apple cider vinegar. You could add probiotics. I would really research this so that you know how much to give. But a little splash of apple cider vinegar goes a long way to keeping their insides healthy. The next thing is heat, very important. Chicks need to be about 95 degrees at the beginning, and the general rule of thumb is you take away 5 degrees every week while you're waiting to put them outside. So where do you get your chicks? If you've never ordered chicks before, you can order them online and they come in the mail. I kid you not. I ordered my first 4-layer hens from a hatchery online. I did call my post office and make sure that they called me as soon as the chicks arrived. Because remember what I said, they're on borrowed time at the beginning and they can only live on the nutrients from the shell for a couple of days. You don't want to take the chance that they're stuck in a mail vehicle for another day. So I alerted my post office that the chicks were coming and to call me as soon as they were there. I promise you, the post office does not want a box of cheeping chicks any longer than they have to. The farmer I bought my chicks from drove 1,000 of them home. So you can imagine the post office is going to be very willing to give you a call when your chicks arrive. You can also buy them at a local farm. This time of year, everybody's selling chicks. If you buy them online, you probably can get them vaccinated. Now, there are 2 things that you would want to get your chicks vaccinated for if you can get them vaccinated, and that is Merrick's disease and Coccidiosis. Merrick's disease is a viral disease that's related to herpes, and if a small chick gets Merrick's, they can very easily spread it to the rest of your flock. Now, unfortunately, there is no cure for Merrick's, so if one of your chickens gets it, you not only have to quickly separate them from the flock, you may have to make that very difficult decision to cull a chick. Coccidiosis is a bacterial infection. It also is very contagious, but you can treat that. I had my egg layers vaccinated when I bought them from an online hatchery, because I knew they were going to be living on my property for many years. When it comes to my meat chickens, I don't worry so much about that because they're only with me for about 12 weeks. And if something happens, I can quickly remove one. If I don't feel comfortable culling it, I could always take it to somebody to do it for me. You also want to watch out for two more things with your chicks. Number one, something called splay leg. Every once in a while, a small chick is born with a hip displacement where their leg is sticking straight out from the side of their body and they can't put weight on it. That can be fixed. There are plenty of videos online. I can link one for you at the end if you'd like, about putting a little boot or a little splint on that leg to force it to go straight so that chick can walk. The other thing you really have to pay attention to in the beginning is something called Pasty Butt. I had to take 3 of these little guys to the kitchen today and clean their back ends. Now, their vent, or the hole through which their waste and their eggs come, can get crusted with waste, could get crusted with poop. Now, if it's just attached to the down, but the vent is free, that's fine. But if that's not cleaned off, then poop can just keep building. If their vent is blocked for even a short amount of time, that can be fatal to a small chick. So you want to make sure you check their bottoms once in a while and make sure that you, with warm water, take that crusted poop off their back ends so that they're healthy. Chicks pretty much tell you everything else. If they're too hot, they're going to move away from your heat source. If they're too cold, they're going to huddle closer to the heat source. If they're running around and eating during the day, like I'm watching mine right now, they're just running around and you can hear them cheeping, then I know they're comfortable. So I kind of monitor them and they tell me when they need something. Now you have 2 choices for heat. You have a clamp-on heat light that you can position over your brooder. And remember, every week you want to lower that temperature by 5 degrees to sort of harden your chicks off to be put outside. So you would have to have a way to raise that light incrementally over a series of weeks. I much prefer the heating plate, and I'll show you mine in a second. With the heat plate, they actually get underneath and they put their backs up against it and it simulates being underneath their mama. I find it very easy to use. The worst thing about it is once they start to jump up on it, now you got to clean it every day. Now I'm going to show you my setup. Okay, this is my current setup. I have them in a baby pool. These are meat chicks, and they grow so quickly that if I put them in a plastic bin, they'd outgrow it within a week. They'd be finding ways to get out. And while we're filming, you might actually catch 1 or 2 of them jump up on that heat plate. So I've surrounded the pool with this cardboard. Now I am noticing some spaces here that could pose a danger. So I think I'll stuff those with paper so that they can't get stuck in there. Their heating plate is plenty big enough for the 10 of them to huddle under, and it is pretty warm down here in the basement. By the time next week comes and their bodies start growing, they're not going to use this like a brand new chick would use. I can configure, oh my goodness, look how brave. They're so funny. I can configure this any way I want to configure it. I can have it higher in the front and lower in the back. I can raise it every week so that the temperature gets cooler under there and can accommodate their larger bodies. Water and food are right now in the smallest containers. Those containers will grow as they grow. And although my chicks came already acclimated to water, when you first get chicks, it's really important to show them where the water is. If these were brand new chicks, I'd have to show them where the water source was. So I would take each one as I placed them and dip their beaks in the water, and then they'd know. The food is the chick starter that I talked about before. I don't choose a medicated chick starter. However, if you buy your chicks and they are not vaccinated for Coccidiosis or Merrick's, you might choose a medicated chick starter. That's a decision you'll have to make for yourself. So there you go. Anybody can raise chicks. You can raise chicks. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Don't forget to subscribe. Have a wonderful day and happy gardening, everybody.